Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello, we are back with another episode of the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and today's guest is MIRA STAMMERS. Now, MIRA is a leading Australian solicitor. She's also the founder and CEO of Legally Yours, which is an online legal marketplace where you can connect to high-quality, fixed-fee lawyers. It's the first of its kind, as far as I know, in Australia. And MIRA launched Legally Yours because she recognized that people ignored or shied away from legal advice purely because they couldn't bring themselves to pay the high hourly rates for lawyers that was required. I can't wait to dive into her story today and to really be able to share her expertise with you. Thank you so much for joining us, MIRA. We're absolutely thrilled to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Casey.
So, MIRA, I can't wait to dive in and share with our audience your story, specifically really going back to your past life, if you like, your corporate life, and just share with us your decision to take the plunge into entrepreneurship and what that really looks like for you today.
Sure. Look, I've been a lawyer for 8 years, and I got into law originally because I wanted to help people. And I found myself in a corporate banking legal position in a firm in Melbourne and then for 5 years overseas. So I was flying around the world doing this great job, and I started thinking, well, who am I actually helping and what am I doing? And I realised I was very good at helping people make more money, but why I initially got into law really wasn't being fulfilled. So when I moved back home, I moved home a couple of years ago to be closer to family, and I started really thinking about what was important to me, and I started thinking about how I could use law to actually help people and do what I initially set out to do. So that led to the thinking around Legally Yours, and really that was about two main things. It was about seeing that small business owners don't access legal because they're really scared about the hourly rate, and rightly so. And then it was also about seeing all these really talented women leave their profession because they couldn't work 70, 80 hours anymore, a week anymore. And they were leaving their profession in, huge amounts of people, really talented women. And I thought, what if you could put these two groups together and they could help each other in a virtual way with lower overheads, so the business owners can access affordable legal and the female lawyers can work from home around their other commitments. So Legally Yours was born off the back of that, and now I feel like I'm doing what I set out to do, and that's helping people.
That's fantastic, MIRA. I love that story. And I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper, is that when you go back in time and you think about that time when you realized that you were flying around the world, having an amazing, you had an amazing job, you probably, staying in 5-star hotels and really living it up and really then helping people from a legal sense. But was there a moment, what was the moment in time that you really realized that you actually weren't fulfilled in your corporate role any longer? Was there a specific moment, or was it a gradual progression over time?
It's funny because there was a very specific moment, and when I loved my job in London, and I moved home and I started interviewing for jobs very similar to the one that I had. And I remember being in this partner's office being interviewed in Collins Street for a big firm. And I had been doing all the planning for Legally Yours in the background, and they were going to give me permission to run that on the side. And my heart sank when I got offered the job. And I thought, there's something about this, that whatever has been stirred up through the whole business planning and whatnot with Legally Yours, there's something in that just made my heart sink about going back into that corporate life, that firm mentality. Something that really didn't gel with me anymore. And I think that was a process of having explored all that was possible and just creating, because it was always initially going to be a back burner project. And I think with that kind of thinking, you get permission to be really outrageous in your dreams because you've got the financial security of another job. But the process of being courageous in my thinking really led to a strong need to pursue that. So.
Okay. And so did you take the job in the end? No. You just you carried on, and you really listened to your heart and followed that spark of fire, I guess, that had been lit with around the whole idea of Legally Yours, right?
And it was a hard decision because a hard decision because I remember thinking, even at the age, mid-30s, thinking, how am I going to tell my family that I'm turning down this very well-paid corporate job to go and pursue something that I don't even know if it will work. But everything in me told me I had to do it, so I just went for it.
That is so courageous, but I love that. And really, that's a real lesson learned, I think, Mira, is really being able to follow your heart and actually taking the courageous step to really do that, because I think once you're in momentum, it's amazing the clarity that comes. And as you said, you didn't know ahead of time whether this was going to be a success or not, but it was really a matter of following your heart and really having the courage to just take that first step, So what has it meant to you now then, being an entrepreneur and taking that plunge, that scary plunge into what I call the entrepreneurial journey, which is full of ups and downs? What's it meant to you?
It's meant the world. It's changed my life. I mean, the way that I think now is really different. I think it was always there, that creative, innovative thinking. In fact, I remember being, when you become an entrepreneur, you think back to whether or not you saw that earlier on in your life. And I remember going to primary school and selling these handmade beads that are, bracelets and things. And I got in trouble at 8 or 9 years old for selling them at school. And I remember thinking, I had that kind of spirit in me then to create something. So the biggest meaning, I think, is being able to help women. That's a real passion driver for me, but also being able to be creative. I didn't realise that was even inside me anymore, and it's just come out in leaps and bounds since I've left corporate, and that's really enjoyable on a daily basis. Yeah.
And again, it's such an important point, is that really being able to create and design, be really strategic in designing a life that you love. I think, Mira, it's one of the key things there is really tapping into what do you love, and that could be really, because we brought up to follow the status quo and, do what's expected of us, that I think oftentimes we kind of forget about what the things are that we really do love to do. It's the same as me, I was trying to think back, what did I really love to do as a kid, and it's like, well, I loved having friends around me. I was always hosting little parties and, having little tea parties with my friends and, as a little girl. And this is the kind of thing that I love, I love hosting podcasts and summits and all that kind of stuff. But I'd forgotten all about that in the kind of quest to follow my corporate path and that kind of thing, So I think that's what's, so enjoyable and so fulfilling around being an entrepreneur, is really being able to tap into the stuff that you really love, because that really does fuel the fire to follow your dream too, I think, Mira. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more around this whole idea of helping women too. So Legally Yours, could you just let us know a little bit more about the business and really, touched on the point that you're offering fixed fee services and then being able to provide women experts, particularly in the field of legal, with this opportunity to work flexibly. And I'd love to, dive in a bit deeper and then really understand your passion for helping women and why that's so important.
Sure. Well, basically it's a legal marketplace. So it's a bit of a new concept. I'm not a law firm. I'm a free referral service, if you like. So if you have a legal need, you can come to me, outline the legal need. I assess that for free, and then I connect you with the right lawyer to help you. So what people don't realise is when they go down to the local solicitor's office, they might not be specialised in the area that you need. Mm-hmm. So you really need that initial assessment by someone who's not invested in you seeing them, and then I assess that and connect you with the person with the right experience. Now, all of the people who are with my service have agreed to much lower rates than they would normally charge. They've done that in order to be part of the service, and that's always on a fixed fee basis. So that's the element that helps small business owners, or even we do family law as well, people access lawyers at affordable rates. And on the lawyer side, I really appealed to women. I really said to women, okay, you don't want to work this 78 hours or, anymore. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with perhaps you have a hobby or a child or whatever you want to do. Why should you have to leave your career just because you're in law? So let's create an opportunity for you to perhaps work from home or from an office and do freelance work when it suits you in your area of specialty. And what's brilliant about that is it's an untapped resource in terms of a talented pool of people that really want to work for a service that helps people as well. So, I just find having a marketplace in that area is really a great idea, both for people needing a lawyer and not knowing where to go, and people who are sick of the status quo when it comes to big firms.
That's fantastic. I love that. It sounds like an incredible resource, and congratulations to you for being so creative and coming up with it. As you say, it's an unfound territory and it sounds amazing. So in terms of you wanting to help women specifically, Mira, what drove that? What's the passion there? Is that, did you see yourself in that, or how did it come about specifically for you?
Yeah, you would think that I saw myself in it, but I didn't really. I think I've always been I come from a long line of feminists to begin with, and very, very strong women in my family who do a lot of good. And I grew up for part of my life with a single mum who worked very, very hard. And so I've always been a big supporter of women. I've always supported women, being creative around bringing more money into their life or supporting themselves. And I can't pinpoint a time in my life that it all, inspired me towards that. I think it's been a life of wanting to support and advocate on behalf of women, and that's my main passion driver.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And so, Mira, in terms of now you've launched Legally Yours and it's going along. How have you had a moment in time that you've during this time that since you've launched that you've thought, oh my goodness, oh wow, this is a light bulb moment for me. I am doing exactly what I've set out to do, and this really is everything to me.
Yeah, I think I've had a few. I think, a few months in, I remember one of the lawyers that joined the service, she had been trained in all the big firms. She'd gone and worked for ASIC for a number of years. She had about 17 years experience, and she had some health concerns, and she had to move out to Torquay, or she wanted a lifestyle change to do that. So with all this experience, she set up her own practice and kind of thought, well, where am I going to get clients from? I'm in Torquay and there's not a big market there. So she was a bit scared, and luckily we connected at that time. And I said, well, I run this virtual service where you can work from home and all of the clients that come to my service would really value your experience. So how about we work together and see how it goes? And a few months after that, she said, within 3 months, I've built my practice now and I've got all of these clients. And otherwise I would have been sitting here twiddling my thumbs, worried about my health and worried about my finances. And I just, it was like a big breath moment where I just thought, it's working. What I've set out to do is working. And it's continued on that track. I mean, I've helped a number of women build their own practices. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, but it's just so inspiring, and I love what's possible from you literally taking that one step way back when, that courageous one step that you've taken, and now you're changing lives as a result of that, Mira, and I just love that, and it's just so inspiring. Challenges. We all know how hard our entrepreneurial journey is, and we've had our fair share of ups and downs, and you've mentioned one of the highs, which it really is that I think a lot of us women are really in business to really make a difference to our own lives, but not only that, but to the lives of other people. And I think that is just the thing that brings all the women to my community, as in Empowered Women Revolution, is really that we're wanting to make a difference to other people's lives as well, and I think I find that story just so inspiring. I love it. But I do know that there are so many challenges too, and it is just not easy sailing, and you've really got to kind of dig deep often to really, be able to walk this path of entrepreneurship. So I'd love to hear, Mara, one of your biggest challenges. What's it been?
Sure, and there have been many, a lot of challenges to overcome, but probably one of my biggest is when I first started. I was so excited to start this service, and I started calling lawyers, recruiting lawyers for the service. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to a lot of lawyers who would say that's never going to work. We could never charge hourly rates. That's just not possible. It's not how it's done, don't you know? And to which I would say, well, thank you. Perhaps you're not right for the service. Thank you very much. and I had a lot of phone calls like that, and that was at the very beginning when I was starting and had all that enthusiasm. It's going to be amazing, and I was being shot down on a daily basis. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if there's enough lawyers that will agree to do what I want them to do, as in charge fixed fees. But I persisted, and I came back every day, and I recruited 65 lawyers in the end around Australia to be able to do exactly what I've asked them to do now. I didn't think that day would come in the first few months. So that was a huge challenge. And what I realised was that there's always going to be people that are stuck in a particular way of thinking, that aren't into your service, that don't really care. And then there will be people that absolutely love what you do. And I think if you focus on those people that love it, even if it's a minority, people get really passionate about what you do. So, that was the lesson I learned, that it's not everyone's game, and that's okay. My idea doesn't have to be the best thing for everyone, but you need a small group of early adopters and people that really support your cause.
That's a huge lesson learned, I think, Mira. So key is that you can't please everyone. As I teach in marketing with my marketing clients, is that and really to be able to stand up from the crowd, you've got to take a stand, and you're going to have the people that really don't resonate with your message, your voice, your business and that kind of thing. And that's a good thing. For me, I think that's a really good thing, because as you say, you're then attracting the real people that really believe you and get behind you, now stand by you, and they'll be your biggest supporters for life, So I think that's a huge lesson to learn, and a really, really hard one, I suppose, to learn early on in your business when you were going through all this doubt and not sure that it was going to work and that kind of thing. So that must have been a huge thing. So I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper there, Mira, and really understand like your mindset and what it took for you to actually then pick up the phone. Our audience are quiet, introverted, shy women, and that would have taken incredible guts. And I can't, to pick up the phone every day and be shut down, as you said, that would have taken incredible courage again. So what was your mindset then, and how did you push through any kind of limiting beliefs that you had around that?
Yeah, well, I had a lot of limiting beliefs, and they got greater by the day. But, I just didn't give up. I believed in what my cause was and what my passion was. That was a huge driver. I think you really need to have a lot of passion in order to continue in those moments. And that's why it's so important to find something you're very passionate about doing. But I also made small, consistent steps. So when it got really hard, I remember thinking, I'm just going to call 15 people today. I'm not going to call 50. I'm going to call 15. And that was enough to get me through to the next step and the next step. And then, the more people that got on board, the more that kind of thinking changed. So it really is. And also it's about just saying, you don't determine who I am. Your thoughts and beliefs from one phone call don't determine who I am as a person. So not giving it much credit in a sense as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, it's great lessons learned. I love that advice. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on, which I think is really important, is this whole idea of connection. So picking up the phone and actually having a conversation with people. We're both in the online space where, there's a multitude of advantages to being in the online space, but nothing really beats that connection, that face-to-face connection, if you like, or, if yours was on the phone and that kind of thing. Mira, so how important was that to you in terms of reaching out and building your network and building your community of lawyers? Like, what steps did you take specifically, and what were you, is there any advice that you can share with our audience around that, about how important it is in terms of gaining that momentum and being able to build this community that's now part of Legally Yours?
I think, initially I had a sign-up form on my website. Well, actually, I started making phone calls before that was built. And once that was built, I allowed that to be there for people to sign up as they heard about the service. Spending about one lawyer a day doing that, and I realised that was a branding risk, that really, at a minimum basis, I needed to be able to interview these people and make sure that they were fantastic and great and believed in what they were doing, would be consistent with my message and my core beliefs. So I think the message is really, in an online world where you can do everything a lot faster through automation and through, building websites with people to opt in and whatnot. I think that's really important, but I think it has a place. So for me, what I learned was that from a branding perspective and from consistency of service perspective, it was so important for me to personally be involved. And that's at the outset. It doesn't need to continue in that sense, but certainly, yeah, it's important to have a mix of both, because you get a strong sense of who people are when you meet them and when you talk to them on the phone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you raise a really good point there. It is that you have to have some kind of as in marketing, you have some kind of funnel, so you can kind of widen your net really wide, but really at the end of the day, you want to be doing business with the people that really resonate with your values, your mission, your message again. So that's a really, really good point, Mira. So in terms of the law and women in business, I'd love to touch on this a little bit, if I may, and really just highlight, for us creative entrepreneurs, the legal aspects of business are probably the furthest thing from our mind. I'm putting my hand up for that one. But it's just such a crucial part of business. So have you got any tips to really share with women starting out in business around the kind of minimum essential things that they've got to have that are really important to when starting out in business?
Yeah, I mean, I do webinars on this a lot because I understand there's a strong educational component about it. People are very reactive with legal. They don't tend to be very proactive. And they say, once I have 1 or 2 employees, then I'll get onto it. That'll be the next thing. But the damage can already be done. So what I tell people is, if you get nothing else, get your client agreements, or otherwise known as terms and conditions, done. So what that does is not only creates a contract with your client, so it's your terms of trade and how you operate your business. So you create a contract with your client that then you can enforce if you're not paid, for instance, which tends to be really important in the early stages. You need, every dollar counts. But it also protects you in terms of limiting, all the kind of reasons that people could come after you. So there's I don't want to get technical or boring, but there's lots of consumer law remedies that people have when they're dealing with your business. And if you don't know about them, you can be breaching them inadvertently and exposed to large fines. Apart from that, people can pursue you for damages in relation to certain things if you don't limit your liability in your terms and conditions. So although really boring, and I understand that, your business is at risk if you don't have properly drafted terms and conditions. So I always say that's the number one, and probably the number 2 is a privacy policy. It's about managing all the information you're collecting from people in a really professional way.
That's great advice, and both, absolutely key, as you say, Mira. And I think what's really important too is that I think oftentimes you go into business with this, as you say, you're really exuberant and excited, and everything's a buzz, and you've got a really positive outlook on your vision for the business and that kind of thing. But really, oftentimes you miss the actual things that could go wrong. I think that's, you might go in really naively and thinking, oh, well, all my clients are going to pay me. I'm not going to have any worries about that. And, I'm not going to have any issues with privacy, and really just go into it kind of naively. And I think that's really, or with a really positive mindset, if you like, and miss all the kind of traps that you can fall into as a startup business, I think. So that's really important. I'd love to also talk to you a little bit, and this is, I know, going a little bit off topic, but it's something that's really topical at the moment, is this whole idea of outsourcing. So as the business grows, you can start, it's a really good idea to start building your team, if you like. And with the opportunities that are available globally now with freelance sites, like Odesk and Elance, well, it's called Upwork now, I think, and those kind of sites, what would be your advice around those kind of legal issues? So when you're looking to outsource outside of Australia because of, it makes more economic sense or whatever, but what would be your advice around that?
If you're looking to outsource outside of Australia, you would need to disclose that in your privacy policy. So it depends on what you're outsourcing. If you're outsourcing any kind of database management or any kind of information about your clients, you need to disclose that to your clients about where that information is going. So that's probably the biggest risk, but also, a lot of these people that are being outsourced to, they're having access to your personal information. You're giving them logins to your AdWords account or your, all of your social media. So it's just about limiting access, I think, being really clear about the limits to what information they can access and making sure that they can't distribute that information or abuse it. So I think just getting really clear about what you're outsourcing, why, and how you can limit it. And if you can't limit it, so just say you're hosting a website overseas where information could go missing, it's happened before.
For sure.
That you're disclosing where your website's hosted and that information will be, travelling outside of Australia.
Okay, fantastic. That's really great advice, Mira. And then in Australia, obviously you've got your permanent employees, but if you're subcontracting, what are the risks around that? What are the legal obligations, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the biggest risk is actually to say you're subcontracting when you're not. What people tend to do is they subcontract because they don't have all the, requirements of paying leave and whatnot that you do with an employee. But the reality is the law and the ATO don't actually look at what you call that relationship. They look at what factors are in that relationship. So are they using your equipment? Can they delegate to other people? Can they work outside of the hours that you require them? There's about 10 to 15 factors. A lot of them can be found on the ATO website that the government goes through to look at what kind of arrangement you have. So I think it's important before you do anything is to assess what it actually is in the eyes of the law. And you don't necessarily need a lawyer to do that. It's helpful, but you can look up that information online and then properly documenting it. It's crucial because, if you're subcontracting out, then basically you're handing over your business to someone else, and you want to make sure that they can't go around that. They can't take your client. There's lots of issues around that.
That's right. Yeah. You see, as I say, there's just so many questions that I could spend hours speaking to you about this. But that's where your service is just so fantastic, is that, as you say, you can really identify, there's all these different areas of law, Mira, and I think, being able to use your service and know that it's fixed fee and being able to get all these questions answered is just amazing. And I think we've just touched a little teeny bit of it today, but it just shows, the depth of the obligations that you need to be aware of and be aware of the risks that you're undertaking as a woman entrepreneur too. So thanks for that. That's great advice. So in terms of moving on now, in terms of lightning round now, and I'd love to just really share with our listeners, do you have a favorite business quote that you live by, and it could be a life quote for that matter either, that you live by every day, and why?
Yeah, I've got several, but my biggest one, I think, is if it scares you, it might be a good thing to try. Seth Godin, because I have personally now for a long time been living outside of my comfort zone, and it's amazing how comfortable that zone can become, and then you push yourself again. I think it's absolutely crucial to do things that scare the hell out of you, because there's so much growth in it and so much opportunity. And how other people see you isn't necessarily how you see yourself. So sometimes when you're terrified and standing up in front of 100 people speaking, they don't know that you're scared. So then 100 becomes easy, and it's on to 200, and there's so much growth.
Oh, I love that. I love that quote. I'm putting that up. That's one for the books. I love it. And it's so true. I 100% agree with you on that one. Absolutely. And so, Mira, do you have a woman that really inspires you? I know there are, that's what the show is all about, is really shining a spotlight on amazing women. But do you have a specific woman in mind that really inspires you, and why?
There's, in fact, I went to a female founders series at PwC last month, and do you know Jo Burston?
No.
She,
yes, rare bird. It's birds. Yes, yeah. I just heard about it actually.
So she flew in, straight from LA to be able to be at this event, and she spoke to. There's only about 30 people in the room, and she spoke very intimately about her journey. And this woman is so courageous. So she just went hell for leather. She went out and got herself an investor. And she wouldn't take no for an answer, and she persisted, and she grew a company called Job Capital First, which is now an international company that has just, I can't remember how many millions in revenue at last count, but she is one woman with a lot of guts and a lot of determination and absolutely went for it. So when she shared her story, there were fears and challenges in there as well, but she never, ever gave up. And now she's in a position where she can really give back with Inspiring Rare Birds and really make a lot of change. And when she spoke, she inspired us all in the room, I think, to just believe in yourself and push forward.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that gave me goosebumps hearing those stories. It's just incredible, that's what you said. It's just that lesson learned is just to go for it, like that. And that's a common theme of yours, Mira, is just, go for it, take the daily action steps. Every single action step really counts. Going for it, stepping out of your comfort zone, because the comfort zone gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more that you do it. So I love all of this. It's just so amazing. And, and you're passionate about women entrepreneurs. And I ask this question of all my women guests, but what do you feel is the single most barrier to entry for women in entrepreneurship today?
I actually think there's a lot of support once you're in there. Taking the leap to get into the mix and back yourself. I think probably the biggest barrier is limiting self-belief, thinking that that it might fail or it might not go as well as you hoped. Well, it might not. But if I knew that if I didn't give it a go, I'd always regret it. So I think if you have something you're passionate about, you have an idea for something, you've done the planning and you're ready to go, just go. In whatever capacity you can manage, just go. Because once you're out there, there's so much support for female entrepreneurs, and it's becoming more and more every day. I mean, Scale Investors launched a couple of years ago, and they invest solely in female entrepreneurs. So lots of people out there supporting you. You've just got to find the right people and do something you love.
Yeah, I love that. And as you say, it's just more and more women are entering the field of entrepreneurship, and there is so much support available. So it really is just a matter of you getting out of your own way. And I think that's a message for all our listeners, is just get out of your own way and go for it, because that's really what it's all about, right? So I'd love to send our listeners to your site. Mira, where can we find you online?
Sure, it's legallyyours.com.au.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Women Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much, and see you next time.